authored that. So I'll just go and have a look. So,
Steve, that's our job. Dude, that's our job.
That's your job?
That's our job.
Ah.
Yeah, that's my job specifically. So.
Oh, okay.
So designing great beers, and I'm sorry, what was the other one?
Randy Mosier's Radical Brewing.
Okay, thank you.
So if you're starting out, Radical Brewing gives you a good run through from the start, and if you're already a brewer, look for designing great beers. Gets you a lot more in depth.
Yeah.
So to finish off, the kettle soured was matched with some macadamia honey must. And I guess I should point out there's a few different ways of doing a braggot. One is what you would affectionately term a honey beer, which is just adding honey to a beer, and to bump up your gravities, get a bit more alcohol into it, possibly lighten the body a little bit. The second type is to actually make a beer wort and a mead must, and blend those together and ferment together, or co-ferment them. And the other type is blending afterwards. So you ferment them separately and then blend at a ratio you prefer. There's lots of ways to go about it. Technically in Australia we have to have 51% or more of our fermentables from honey to comply with our wine licence, whereas the breweries need to have 51% or more of their fermentables from beer or their wort to comply with their excise licence. So it's a bit higgledy-piggledy over in Australia with the licences, but it's the way they want to do it.
I see it as being a bit simpler from what I've heard of the TTB.
Well, yeah, actually, we don't have to have label approvals, recipe approvals, approvals to exist, all of that sort of stuff. So we just need to get a license and we're done.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Which is no easy thing, but once you're there, you're okay.
Very good.
But, do we have more questions, or do we need to expand on some of these styles?
I'm kind of wondering. Just what led you to doing braggots? I mean, why? There's so many styles. Just out of curiosity, why did you settle there?
Well, we do mead. We do traditional meads. We do melomels. We do sizes, capsule. It was just another arrow in the quiver, so to speak, something different. I like to experiment, and I like to try different things. So it actually drives my wife and my bookkeeper a bit mad, because you end up with 25 different products you've got to try and market and keep up on the stock list and keep up on the website and everything else. So it gets a bit nuts, but it's fun. It's the fun part of it all. So I have a background in beer brewing, helping out professional mates and actually brewing, like home brewing beers for many years, and managed to get a few state awards from it. And combining those two is pretty cool. So.
Yeah, all right. So you said before that there's two ways to make a braggot. You can get a beer and add honey to it, or you can make a mead and have sort of some malt and hops or something. And how would you describe your braggots? Do they taste like beer, or do they taste like mead with a twist?
Oh, It really depends on the braggot. Let me put it that way. We did a beer a braggot which we weren't overly happy with, called Freedom from Haggis. Now that was a Scottish heavy with a caramelised buckwheat honey in it. Now that was two distinct flavour hits as you drank it. So you got a little bit of the Scottish heavy. Now Scottish heavy is a darker beer, but it's not full of the roast like a stout would be. So it's really, based on about a 3 or 4% afternoon beer that the workers would have back in the day. So you get a little bit of roast, but more caramels and a little bit of toffee from it. But then the buckwheat came in, and buckwheat is an intensely strong honey, and when you caramelise it, it actually it goes even further. So you got the beer, then you got the buckwheat in that particular one. So it wasn't a success. Again, polarising, but fun to do. The one I'm drinking now is more barrel. So you're getting the spirits from the barrel, so the rum and the whiskey. Let's see. The kettle sours are more the beer style. So you're actually getting more of the kettle soured beer than you are the mead. The triple IPA is a beer with a twist, so you're getting a really strong IPA, a lot of hops, really high ABV, but just with a kick of the blackberry honey at the end. We have a loudmouth braggot, which was our first one we did, is a Belgian saison with an orange blossom honey. So the saison is really nice and estery. So that one is probably the truest to a beer style we've got, even with the honey, purely because the citrus from the honey just actually complements and melds into the beer style itself.
It's really interesting. So, this is going to sound really stupid. Where do you get your ideas? I mean, this is such a stupid question. But it's just like I always
your Aussie slang.
Yeah, no. I get bagged on by a couple of Aussies because my Aussie slang isn't up to snuff. I'm just curious, because you're obviously into braggots and that. So, is there? I mean, the beer that you're drinking now, that's based on a stout. Do you lean more? What style do you lean more towards in your braggots? Because, a braggot can take any shape or form that a beer can.
Well, this is going to sound pretty bad, but I'm pretty easy. I'll drink just about anything and just about any style. And what we do is, one of the good afternoon pleasures we have is to sit at the bar, which looks out over the paddocks, because we're on 100 acres where we are at the moment. So the bar's out on the veranda, we can watch the animals and watch the kangaroos and everything else go past. We'll sit there and we'll blend beers and meads. So when we're feeling creative, we'll grab a couple of different styles of beer, a couple of different styles of mead, and just play little blending games. Touch of this, a touch of that. That could work. That may not. That's rubbish. Tip it over the side for the dogs. Yeah, that sort of stuff. And that's where you get your ideas from. It makes for a bit of a messy night if you do too much of it. But
I was thinking it sounds like a perfect idea for when I finally get Vicky to come out and visit. If we can put aside one of those nights when we come visit you.
Well, for sure, because we've just bought a new property. Where we're hoping to base the meadery in the cellar door. And the last owners put a big veranda right out the front, right on the top of an escarpment. So you've got 180-degree views for about 50 kilometres all the way around.
Oh, my God.
Because you're up above everything else. And it's the first thing we're doing when we're moving in is we've got a bottle of sour cherry ale we're going to crack on that deck and just sit there and enjoy the view. So I can foresee a few late nights there doing blending sessions.
I'd totally be up for that, especially if there was also food involved.
Well, yeah. Eventually there will be. I mean, there's looking to be a whole outdoor kitchen going on.
Well, but we could practice, beforehand. I mean, you've already got the land.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, we'll have some really nice aged pig products. Because we, as a personal thing, we sort of make our own bacon and pork and
nice
dry aged beef. So it sort of all melds together.
Sounds amazing.
It's good fun.
When's the barbecue?
It's really good fun. Tonight.
Yeah, dang. I'm a little bit far away. It'll take me a little while to get there. You don't mind me showing up day after tomorrow or thereabouts,
I'll be at work, but, you can show up.
Well, so you get out of work at, what, 2, 3?
10.
10, well, there you go then. So 4 to 10, yeah, that works. Okay. So what did you run into? I mean, braggots are kind of an oddball. They're kind of an oddball style. I mean, not in that they're weird or any. Well, okay, depends on what you're asking or what you're thinking, I guess. But they're not as common as all the rest of the mead styles. So what can people learn from what you've already done?
The biggest thing is to experiment and learn your beers and your meads beforehand. Like we didn't just go and start from scratch. We've had quite a bit of time playing with beers, playing with meads. So you sort of get a base understanding. But the biggest tip I would pass on is to use the yeast that's appropriate to that beer style. So the Monster Braggot we've got going at the moment uses Lauven D47. That's the only one of our braggots that actually uses a wine yeast for the braggot. So the Imperial Stout portion of Orange is the New Vlad is fermented with an English ale yeast. The American Pale Braggots, the kettle-soured American Pale Braggots are fermented with US-05 or a Californian ale yeast. What else have we got? The Belgian Saison based loudmouth braggot is fermented with Saison 3 from White Labs because it's got a really nice ester profile. The triple IPA is fermented with Fermentus US-05. So if you've got a base beer style, you want to follow that through, because the reason that style is successful is that particular yeast complements what's going on with the malt, what's going on with the hops. So all you're trying to do then is add to it with the honey and the must. Now most of ours we add a must. So rather than just brew the beer and add however many kilos or pounds of honey to it, we actually make up the must first and add that. That way, while you're adding a diluted honey, your sweetness profile and your flavour profile is not overloaded, and it's a lot easier to be more accurate with what you're adding. So it's very easy to go over the top sometimes with the sweetness level. So if you can add a must rather than honey, it's controllable, I guess. So
What are you seeing with your nutrient? What sort of nutrient additions are you using, and what are you noticing about that?